Alright, chat. We're going to do a quick review of a review. These are the top 10 cards from Kaldheim, according to me, before we played with Kaldheim. Here. I would say that's pretty good. Not perfect, but pretty good. Alright, so how did we get on? I went for Burrig, number 1. Burrig. Now, I would not keep Burgy at number 1, but I would still have it in my top 10. Let's get a new top 10 up. Burgy, vintage cube card, by the way. Alright. What's our new top 10, chat, so we can see how close we are? So what's number 1? Kaldheim card, its impact on like standard, historic, etc. Number 1 has to be, in my opinion, Faceless Haven. All in favour? Aye or nay? Faceless Haven, numero uno. Number 2 is a bit tougher. Number 2 has many competitors here. Could be Binding, could be Scalds, Valky? I don't know about Valky, man. Valky, really? I'm not sure about Valky, number 2. It depends what we are basing it off of, right? Like, obviously, Valky is, and to some extent, Burgy are really strong in the older formats, right? But when I made this list for impact in standard and historic. That's why Burgy's at number 1, because I thought Burgy would be a piece of a tier 1 combo deck in historic. Didn't turn out that way yet. So it depends how we want to actually rate these cards, because if you're doing it across all of Magic, then yeah, I mean, Valky should be number 1, right? But it's pretty unfair, because that's a different rating system to what we used for making the original list. So for number 2, I think it's a fair fight between Binding or Scouts. Scouts has brought up like multiple new decks in standard, and Binding is a part of the best deck in historic and one of the best decks in standard. Maybe Scouts gets number 2 just because it's actually created decks rather than just improving existing ones. So 3rd would be Binding for me. So what cards are not on the list that should be on it? Toski and the Dragon, right? Are they the only 2? Clarion Spirit. I mean, Clarion Spirit is an incredible card. Let's take a note of the cards that could be on it. Clarion Spirit, Frostbite, Dragon. I mean, I don't really even want to put the Dragon on there, by the way. Saw It Coming? I mean, it's just a normal... I don't even think Saw It Coming makes the list. Redain? I mean, Redain's kind of like Dragon tier, right? I don't know. Oh, Vorinclex. I don't think Vorinclex is that good of a card. It's just it's 1/3 of the payoff of one random obscure combo deck, right? Same applies to Epiphany, in my opinion. Mox Emerald, aka Jasper Sentinel. Not quite as good as Mox Emerald, I would say. Oh, Valkyrie will be in the top 10, man, but I do think it goes down from 2. So is there any here in the list that don't get to stay? That's the next question. Aegon and Predator and Rally are all really good, but they didn't actually make it into any long-lasting decks. Usher was only ever going to be a part of one deck, right? And it was a part of that deck. So I think it would be harsh to take Usher out of top 10 here. I mean, Usher did everything that it could as a card, right? And that's get included in a mono-white deck. Right, so we're dropping Rally, Aegon, Predator, and Doomscar, I guess, right? Which means we're adding 4. We've got 4 slots from the cards that are not here. So for me, Clarion Spirit and Frostbite, easy clap. They make it. What's our other 2 that are not already in the top 10? Pathways. I mean, that's boring though, right? If you're going to include lands, if you're going to include like coloured lands, you're just going to 5 pathways and Faceless Haven will be the top 6 cards. That's shit. Toske, 2/4 Angel. I mean, the 2/4 Angel did enable us a decent, almost tier 1 historic deck, right? So, Righteous Valkyrie is a fair shot. Over Dragon, Toske, Redain. Don't know. How many cards have remained from the original list? Oh, it's going to be 6, right? It's going to be Haven, Scouts, Binding, Valky, Usher, and Burgie. You could make a case for keeping Doomscar in there, but I mean, I think that's a bit of a stretch, in my opinion. Vandal could be on there. I mean, Vandal definitely deserves a slot in this list. That's for sure. Realmwalker? Nah. Saga that kills a thing and fetches a forest? We have Binding staying at... Well, I had Binding at number 6 and I've now improved it to number 3. Alright, can we put Valky at number 4 here? Like, Dragon enabled like 2 decks, right? Is it Tempo and the Naya Fling? But the problem is both of those decks are terrible, so I don't think Dragon should even be in the list. Just because it enabled 2 decks, it doesn't matter if those decks end up being shit. I don't want Dragon in the top 10. Toski, I'm not sure Toski has done enough to deserve a slot in the top 10. It's a very strong card, and I think it will get used a lot in the future, but again, it's only really made it into 1 deck, right? But it has been kind of enabled, that deck by itself, almost. Alright, so Clarion Spirit and Frostbite. Are definitely going in. So they're going in near the top. So really, I think they would go in before Usher.
Keep up the content, Dad.
So I mean, the next question is what goes at number 4? Valky, Clarion Spirit, or Frostbite? I think they're 4, 5, and 6. For standard and historic. I'm down to put Clarion Spirit number 4, honestly. Valky is everywhere? No, but I made the original list for standard and historic. So we have to make this current list for standard and historic. We can't. Obviously, Valky is near the top and near number 1 if you're including all formats, but that's not in the spirit of what we're doing. This is for power level and impact and deck creation within standard and historic. Alright, Valky, fine. Alright, so Clarion Spirit and then Frostbite, right? Okay. Now what? It's a pretty hot top 5, man, I'm not gonna lie. I would happily play those cards in my deck. Toski? See, I'm not sure if Toski makes it, man. I think Toski is like similar to the Dragon, right? I mean, I'd rather have Toski in there than the Dragon, though, for sure, but... Okay, I mean, after Frostbite, we're now at the point where we're hitting cards that have either been a part of only 1 deck or enabled only 1 deck. And if they've enabled more than 1 deck, those decks have been bad. Is Vandal even that widely used? I mean, I still think Vandal gets underrated a lot. I don't really see Vandal in lists that often. I mean, I play Vandal almost every time I play Green, but for other people, I don't know. I don't see it played against me a lot at all. Or even like when we're looking at the tournament lists, I don't see Vandals in there very often. What the hell is this? Epiphany is in Sultai Ultimatum and Team Returns. I don't know, man. Those decks aren't very good though, right? Guys, it's not a list of number of times the card has been put in a deck. or else Dragon would be number 1. But the way that we're playing, the way that we're doing this list, Dragon's not even going to be in the top 10. Shadow's Verdict. Okay, I mean, I don't. Is that even a Kaldheim card? If it is, that could be in there. I can't even remember. I'm pretty sure Shadow's Verdict's like 3 sets ago, right? Or 4. It's an old one. We just started playing it though. No? Yeah, I didn't think so. If it was a Kaldheim card, you could make a case though. Because it did only start getting played in Kaldheim, huh? Weirdly. The way we are doing this is that it isn't the top 10 best cards. Is that what you just said? No, it's not what I just said. And I don't know why you're pretending that it is. It's about impact and creation of decks that are actually very good. Not just not playable, just like the very, very good decks. Which is why we've got Haven, Scouds, Binding all at the top, right? And Valky number 4. If it was another way around, the Valky would be at the top. But if it's just number of times been put in a deck, that's completely uninteresting. There's nothing to talk about if that's the case. This is how I did the original list. I thought Burgi, I thought Valky, I thought Doomskar were going to enable new tier 1 decks in Standard and Historic. Faceless Haven has enabled the new tier 1 decks in Standard or Historic. Scouds has enabled new tier 1 decks in Standard or Historic. It's not that hard to understand. Burgi and Usher have not enabled any new tier 1 decks, so Usher has. Mono White would not be very playable without Usher because they'd be down one of their best cards in their most important slot, which is their 1 mana slot. Epiphany, you can make a case for Epiphany for sure. Vandal, Epiphany, Valkyrie. It's not easy, is it? I think I might take Frostbite down a little bit. Yeah. Guys, I might put Jasper as Sentinel number 5, man. No cap. Alright, chat, I'm putting Jasper Sentinel number 5 for now. Elves and Historic, Naya and Standard. Those are 2 very strong decks. And that's like multi-format impact. Those decks would not even begin to exist without Jasper Sentinel. There's a ton of cards in both of those decks that could be replaced. Jasper Sentinel has no... There's no alternate option. I'm starting to go off Frostbite a little bit here. We might have been a bit hasty with Frostbite. Yeah, Epiphany's going on there somewhere. Pretty low though, I think. Because, I mean, it is literally just a random card in 2 medium decks. Frostbite's a great card. It has had an impact. Yeah. I mean, it's a... If that mono red deck had to play Shock instead of Frostbite, I think it would be a lot worse. But it is just a minor upgrade to one card in one deck, so it probably doesn't deserve a spot here. Dragonspan's going to be played for the next 6 expansions or something. And I mean, the dragon might be the most overrated card I've ever seen in the whole time I've played Magic. Epiphany's replaceable? I think so too, man. The Sultai deck doesn't need Epiphany. Maybe that Teamer deck needs Epiphany, but I mean, that Teamer deck is bad, right? I don't know. Yeah, Vandal and Redain are probably going in there. I mean, Redain might be number 6, right? Redain might be number... Redain might be number 5. Redain might be number 4, honestly. I could see Redain number 4. It's either in every white deck main deck, or it's in the sideboard, right? Of every white deck. I keep looking... I mean, okay guys. You know what? I mean, Redain's number 2, dude. What the hell am I thinking? Redain is easy too. That is that high. It is either in the main deck or the sideboard of every single deck that has white mana. Every single deck, right? So Vandal needs to go into... Vandal is also in the sideboard of every green deck, and if there's any green deck that doesn't have it in the sideboard, it should be in there, so... How high is Vandal? That's the question. It's definitely in the top 10. Maybe bottom at 10? I think it's pretty high though. Does Vandal see any play in like older than historic decks? Is there any like Pioneer or Modern sideboards with Vandal in it? I would say probably not, but it wouldn't shock me to see people start to play it. It's a crazy card, man. Exile effect, 1/3 body, 2 mana. Mad. I mean, not above historic, yeah, but it's that doesn't have any influence on where it goes in this list, but I was just interested. I'll put Vandal here for now. Below Sentinel, above Spirit. So any other cards that have like taken over sideboards completely? It's just Redain and Vandal, right? Clarion Spirit's getting screwed? Nah, I think Clarion Spirit is really good, but... Crippling Fear? It's really a standard only card, right? It's not doing anything in Historic. And even in standard, it's not in that many decks, man. Yeah, I mean, Valkyrie had a massive impact on the Angel deck, it's true. But... we need to get Usher in there, guys. We've got 2 slots. 2 slots for Usher, Valkyrie, and Epiphany? Or Frostbite. Doomscar? I don't think Doomscar makes the cut, man. Saw it coming. I don't know, man. Don't know about Saw It Coming. It is a good card. And I do think it is an upgrade on the alternative side counter spells that those decks have access to. But not by a massive amount, man. Not by a massive amount. And it sees a lot of play, yes. But it's a counter spell, guys. Counter spells always see a lot of play. And Saw It Coming sees a lot of play because it's the best one, right? That people have access to right now. I don't think that necessarily means it's a top 10 card. But you could make a case for it being a top 10 card for sure. I'm happy to put Saw It Coming in there like number 9 or 10. I think that's fair. I can see the last 2 cards here being Saw It Coming and Toski. Or Saw It Coming and Valkyrie, maybe? But Valkyrie is such a narrow card, man. I don't know if it deserves a spot. Over Toski? Okay, chat, you've convinced me. I'm gonna bump up slot coming here. Alright, final slot. Toski, Valkyrie. What are your other options? I mean, Valkyrie kind of goes against what we've been doing for the rest of the rankings, but it has like enabled a very good historic deck, which is worth more to me than enabling a very good standard deck, right? Because it's more difficult to do for a card. Is Angels a good deck? Well, I mean, it's nothing compared to Sack, but I do think it's one of the better ones of the non-Sack decks, yeah. You think Sentinel doesn't deserve to be there? Dude, Sentinel is, like, one of the most important cards in, like, numerous decks across both formats. If anything, Sentinel should be higher. We want Squirrel? I also want the Squirrel, man. I'm happy to put Toski here. Is that a fair list? Guys, the pathways are such a boring option, man. The pathways would just be number 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. That's like completely against the spirit of what we're trying to do here, man. We're trying to do something interesting, not something uninteresting. Stop trying to scam the system, man. I mean, honestly, probably pathways will be 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, with Haven number 6. Goldspan Dragon? I don't think Dragon deserves a slot, man. And I'm happy to die on that hill. Dragon has been a part and an enabler of 2 decks that have been played an amount that they didn't warrant, and they have eventually, and in my opinion, too slowly fallen off into nothing. Why is Vandal so high? Well, for the same reason that Redain's so high, right? Because it's in every single sideboard of the colours that the... If you're playing a forest and a creature, you've got Vandal in your sideboard, or you should do. The reason why Redain's like a lot higher than Vandal for similar reasons is it has that with regards to white, but it's also in a ton of main decks too. Not having Epiphany on this list is a giga scam? How? How is it a scam? Epiphany is like, it's a completely replaceable card in Sultai, and yes, it's a somewhat important card of Temur Adventures, but Temur Adventures is just... not only is it not a great deck, but it would also just be fine without it, man. It's like a very minor upgrade on Henge, you know? They already had Henge for that slot. Predator didn't do much, unfortunately. Well, Predator was an important, or was and is an important part of Jund and Rakdos in Standard, but those decks just weren't powerful enough to allow Predator to stay on the list, I think. I don't think Predator didn't have a low impact because it's a bad card. It had a low impact because it just doesn't have a good deck. Which is, I mean, it's the same for a lot of the cards that we've cut from the original list, right? Burgi, Doomscar, Predator, and to some extent Aegon and Rally. I mean, these cards are all really strong. They just don't have a deck, so they shouldn't be in the list by the criteria that we're using. So we're not having Usher in the top 10, huh? It's bold, man. It's bold to not have Usher in there. Well, you can see the initial list here. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I mean, you have to be very specific with how you're rating the cards, because there's so many different ways to rate them, right? You can rate the cards in a vacuum, you can rate them as part of decks, you can rate them in terms of like number of times played, you know? The way that we're rating the cards is their impact on tier 1 or tier 2 decks in Standard and Historic. In which case I think we've got a fair top 10 here. How has Saw It Coming drastically improved any decks? Well, the Foretell cards are really the only reason why you can play Blue-White Control in Historic, right? Still seems crazy Burgi wasn't better. Well, I do think Burgi is the most powerful card in the set, but we don't have any decks for it yet, right? Yeah, it's a very narrow card, right? So you need to, the best use for Burgi is in a combo deck that, well, it has to be a combo deck, it has to play a lot of red cards, or at least have ways to spend red mana. And you have to be drawing a lot and want to draw more so that you can filter with the artifact, right? So you need mana generations. That's why I thought there was a chance that Burgi would be like the centerpiece of a tier 1 Historic combo deck, because it is the type of card that can be. We just haven't found it yet, if there is one to find. But like a Burgi combo deck is exactly the type of deck that could be the best deck in Historic, right? If we found that, because that's the type of deck that beats Jund, right? As well. The Horn's not horrible in some cases. Well, that's what I mean, right? You have to, your Burgi combo deck would have to make like great use out of both sides. So you need to make use out of the mana generation and the artifact. We haven't found that deck yet. Alright, chat. I'm calling it there. That's our list. Top 10. The Clarion Spirit and Toski, and even Saw It Coming. I think there's 5, 6, 7, maybe even 8 cards fighting for these last 3 spots, and like 11 through 15 are pretty much the same as these 3. But top 7 for me is this. So this, if anything, should be a top 7 list. And then you've got the next 8.